So I recently made a video on marijuana stocks, and I mentioned in that video that they're just too expensive for me to get involved with them at the moment. But if I was forced to invest in them, some of my favorites would be Aurora Cannabis, maybe Canopy, Kronos, Hexo, and a couple others as well. Well, a lot of you left comments asking me to talk more about Aurora Cannabis, and because the stock has been really on fire lately, I figured right now would be as good a time as any to do a full analysis on the stock. So today we're going to talk about the company, their performance, their future potential, the stock, and much more in today's video. Let's get started. What's up everybody, my name is Ale and welcome to my world of stocks. If you want to see more videos on marijuana stocks, make sure you let me know by either hitting the like button or by leaving a comment down below. But with all that said, let's go ahead and start by looking at their stock, and then we'll transition to their business and their future potential. Now, in the past 3 years, the stock is up an insane amount of over 2,000%. And while they have certainly seen their fair share of ups and downs, they're still up over 80% year to date, despite us being less than 3 months into the year. And looking even more recently than that, we can see that they jumped by almost 14% on Wednesday alone and are up almost 15% in the past 5 days, to now trading at over $9 a share at the time of this recording. So why did the stock jump by so much? Well, they announced that they'll be appointing a new strategic advisor by the name of Nelson Peltz in a deal that will offer him the option to purchase almost 20 million shares at a price of Canadian $10.34 per share, which is considerably less than what the Canadian stock is currently trading for. But who exactly is Nelson Peltz anyway? Well, he's the CEO and founding partner of a multi-billion-dollar investment management firm called Trian Fund Management, and he began his career working for his family's food distribution business before going on to serve as either CEO, chairman, director, advisor, or board member of numerous big-name companies like Wendy's, Procter & Gamble, Cisco, the Madison Square Garden Company, Heinz, Arby's, Snapple, Triangle Industries, and many more. Needless to say, the dude definitely has a lot of connections, and Aurora is hoping that these connections will come in handy, as they noted in their press release that this will help them explore potential partnerships as they enter more markets. And given that Peltz is so well connected in the food industry, he makes an ideal advisor to help them push cannabis-infused drinks and edibles. Keep in mind that some of the other big-name weed companies already have very important partnerships, like Tilray partnering with Anheuser-Busch, Hexo with Coors, Kronos with Altria, and Canopy with Constellation Brands that owns popular beers like Corona and Modelo. But don't get me wrong, Aurora has made numerous acquisitions that I think will set them up perfectly to be one of the biggest marijuana players in the world, especially in North America and Europe and South America. In fact, their global footprint will now reach 24 different countries after the recent acquisition of Gaia Farm in Portugal that will now be called Aurora Portugal. But on the flip side, all of the funding of these numerous acquisitions has also led to massive dilution for shareholders, and at the end of the day, I feel that Aurora still lacks a heavy hitter partnership like their peers. Now, there used to be rumors of a partnership with Coca-Cola, but unfortunately that never blossomed into anything meaningful. So if this new advisor helps them in that regard, then I think this could certainly pay off for Aurora, at least in the long term. But does that warrant an almost 15% pop in the stock price when the valuation is already so high? Well, perhaps, but you still can't forget that this is a stock that trades with a market cap of over $9 billion, yet they weren't even profitable in 2 of their last 4 quarters, with their most recent quarter seeing them lose over 237 million Canadian dollars. But the thing that Aurora definitely does have going for themselves is growth. In their last reported quarter, that being the last 3 months of 2018, they grew their revenues to over 54 million, which was up from just 11.7 million the year prior. And in the last 6 months of the year, they clocked in revenues of over 83 million versus just 20 million the year prior. That represents year-over-year revenue growth of over 360% in the quarter and over 320% for the last 6 months. Obviously, companies tend to experience the most shocking growth at the early stages of their business, but these are impressive numbers nonetheless. For comparison, Canopy Growth often carries a market cap that is close to double that of Aurora, yet they grew their revenues by a lower amount at around 280% year over year. But to be fair to Canopy, they did bring in about 30 million more in revenue and were actually profitable in the quarter. But my point is that a lot of these weed stocks are growing by insane amounts every quarter, and that's leading to some ridiculous valuations that keep their market caps in the high single-digit billions, if not more. Still, thanks to all the shareholder dilution, their balance sheet has remained mostly intact, with more current assets than total liabilities combined and almost 5 billion Canadian dollars in total assets, although much of that is goodwill and other intangible assets that I don't normally consider. In any case, my personal opinion is that the stock is still overvalued at these current levels, but looking out long term, like say 10 years out or more, I definitely think that Aurora has a ton of potential, and there's really two primary reasons why I think that. Reason number one is that the industry as a whole should see tremendous growth in the coming years, and that growth will be taken advantage of the most by the biggest players in the space. In fact, the United States alone is an enormous retail market, doing over $5 trillion in sales per year, according to Statista. And because of the enormous size of that market, Marijuana Business Daily estimates that US cannabis retail will bring in over $22 billion by 2022. For context, that number was less than half of that last year, so that's remarkable growth for the industry. Not to mention that most of that growth is from recreational use, which is a clear sign that continued legalization will in fact benefit these companies by an enormous amount. Keep in mind that at least 33 states have already legalized medical marijuana, with 10 of them legalizing both medical and recreational. And that's just the US market, but there are many other markets worldwide that could be worth billions of dollars in the future, with Canada alone being estimated somewhere between 4.9 to 8.7 billion Canadian dollars. And that brings me to reason number two, which is that the biggest and most global marijuana companies will ultimately benefit the most from all of this market potential, and in my opinion, Aurora is in one of the best, if not the best position to benefit from global growth. See, they're already producing over 100,000 kilograms a year, but are forecasting that to grow to 500,000, while some estimates are pushing that number as high as 700,000 thanks to various deals, acquisitions, and expansions. Now, they already have their 800,000 square foot facility called Aurora Sky that can produce over 100,000 kilograms on its own, and when their 1.2 million square foot facility called Aurora Sun is complete, it will pump out another 150,000 kilograms. They also partnered with Alfred Pedersen and Son in Denmark to form Aurora Nordic, targeting the Scandinavian region, and they made at least 16 different acquisitions in the last few years to keep expanding their portfolio, with a few notable ones being Canamed Therapeutics for $852 million, ICC Labs for $290 million, helping them target the South America region, and MedRelief for a whopping $2.5 billion. Of course, all of these acquisitions has led to the massive share dilution that we talked about earlier, which you can see on this screenshot here from Macro Trends that shows their outstanding shares ballooning by 116% in 2017, 68% in 2018, and a massive 138% in their last quarter. So for me personally, the biggest concerns that I have with Aurora is their really high valuation and the stock dilution. Don't get me wrong, I'm as much of a growth investor as the next person, but I just can't ignore those two huge elephants in the room. Canopy, on the other hand, also has tremendous growth, but is sitting on over $4 billion in cash, so they could make future expansions or acquisitions without necessarily having to dilute shareholders. But on the other hand, their market cap is already much larger than Aurora by almost 2 times. So by all accounts, when I look at Aurora Cannabis and a few other marijuana stocks out there, I just can't help but look at them as spec stocks for the future. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think every investor should have at least one or maybe even a couple spec stocks in their portfolio for the future, just kind of having like small positions in them for the future, especially in growing industries and markets. But I just can't help the fact that, these stocks are up by so much. My spec stock right now in my portfolio is NIO. It's an electric vehicle maker, and that stock has actually been crashing lately, so I've been buying a lot more shares because the stock has actually been going down, whereas Aurora and a few other marijuana stocks have just been going up by so much, and their valuations are just so high out there. So I just really feel like the stocks have gotten a little bit ahead of me, and I'd really like to wait for a significant pullback before I can invest in them. Especially if we were to go into any kind of recession, I really feel like high valuation stocks would really get crushed. And so that might be a better time for me to pick up a few marijuana stocks. But that isn't to say that I'm not bullish on Aurora in the long term. I really do think that they have a ton of potential. And if your time horizon is way out there, I really think you could have a lot of success with this stock as a long-term investment. Not to mention that a lot of people like to swing trade marijuana stocks, and they have a lot of success doing that too. But when I look at Aurora Cannabis, I just can't help but notice that they have a tremendous amount of capacity that just continues to grow, and their global footprint is also growing. They can tap into so many global markets, which I think is a huge deal, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Canada was just the second country to fully legalize. I think it was the first industrial country to legalize. So there's a lot of untapped potential out there, especially for like recreational use. And then you also look at the new hiring of this advisor, this like multi-billion-dollar hedge fund manager as a strategic advisor for them. And I think that could definitely land them that big partnership that they need. Like some of those other companies, partnering with Coors and Constellation Brands and things like that. Aurora definitely needs a big partner too. It would have been really nice if they would have partnered with Coca-Cola, but unfortunately nothing really happened with that. But if they do make a big partner here in the short term or medium term, that could be a big deal. So I'm definitely going to keep tracking the stock. And again, if I see a major pullback, a good entry point, I may pick up some shares, but I'll definitely give you guys an update and let you know if I do end up buying the stock at any moment. So make sure you're subscribed for that. And again, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for all the support. Leave your comments down below. What do you think about Aurora? Are you invested in them? Do you plan to invest in them? Or do you just kind of feel that they're valued just too high right now, just a little too expensive, and you'd rather wait for a pullback, kind of like what I'm doing? So let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to read your comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.